Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. We've got a lot to get to today, and we begin with Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio. He is in Orlando this morning. Senator, welcome to Face the Nation.
Thank you. Good morning.
Chief of Staff John Kelly is set to depart the White House at the end of the year. He was often seen as sort of a force of stability. What will his departure mean in terms of being able to work with the White House and get things done?
Well, I don't think it'll impact negatively in any way our ability to work with the White House or to get things done. I have a lot of admiration for General Kelly. I've always found him to be a professional, someone who works hard and gets things done. And like every administration, you know, the president's, there'll be changes in that position. It's a hard and difficult job, and so obviously he'll be missed.
There's a lot of news in terms of the developments on the front of the special prosecutor. On Friday, federal prosecutors also said that President Trump personally directed illegal payments through his attorney, Michael Cohen, to women who claim to have affairs with him. The president is denying all wrongdoing here. What do you make of these charges, and do you stand by him?
Well, remember, I think it's important to remind people there's two separate probes going on. I think in that case, you're discussing the one out of the New York, the prosecutor, the U.S. Attorney's Office out of New York. And then there's the Mueller probe. Look, we're a nation of laws. We have a system by which government can acquire information, put that information and evidence together, and make presentations before judges. And in this particular case, there's individuals, not the president, who have been accused of crimes, who have pled guilty to crimes, and this is part of their sentencing process. And separately from that is the right of someone to argue that the evidence is not what you say it is. And so everyone is entitled to that. No, just like no one is above the law in this country, no one is beneath it either. That said, obviously, you know, you read some of these details. We're going to wait for more information. We're doing our own probe in the Senate Intelligence Committee. And I'm usually cautious about discussing the matter or the Russian interference portion of it because we're not done with our work yet. I can tell you this, that some of the things that have come out over the last couple of weeks, particularly with regards to Mr. Cohen, have led the committee to go back and interview witnesses or attempt to interview additional witnesses again based on their testimony in the past. Clearly, these are things that are to be taken into account and seriously, and I would caution everyone just continue to wait until all this plays out. But it's important that this continue to move forward.
So I understand you saying there that you stand by the president.
Well, again, there's no reason to not stand by anybody in this moment. There are pleadings, there are cases, there are evidence. We're going to wait for all of it to be out there. And I would caution everyone to wait for all of it to be out there until you make judgment. Your judgment may not change. But nonetheless, judgments should be made on the basis of all the information that is before you. That is most certainly what we're doing in the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. So as I've said repeatedly, I believe that Mr. Mueller's probe should continue and move forward unimpeded. Both of those findings will be there before the American public. We'll see what it all shows when put together, and we'll move on from there and see what needs to be done.
We also learned this week that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was cooperating with prosecutors on at least 3 investigations. Does that concern you?
Well, ultimately, the fact that he's cooperating with prosecutors, I think obviously
on multiple
it's good
fronts, multiple investigations now. That was new information, a new development.
Yeah, I'm interested in the truth. I want to know what happened. If someone didn't do anything wrong here, we don't want to be unfair and unjust. If someone did something wrong here, it is important in the interest of the country and the rule of law that those people be held to account. That's what I've always been in favor of, the truth, finding out everything that happened, making sure that we're not out there accusing people of things that didn't happen. And those are ongoing probes. And some of it we're beginning to see glimpses of pieces of information. I would argue that Mr. Mueller probably has more information than the rest of us do, certainly the general public does.
In your role on the Intelligence Committee, I know this week we had a significant development with China, this extraordinary move of the U.S. seeking the extradition of a Chinese telecom executive from the firm Huawei. One of the last times you were on this program, you actually said that company and other Chinese telecom firms need to be banned from doing business in the United States. Are you going to try to introduce something in the new Congress to do that?
100%, absolutely. And here's why. We have to understand Chinese companies are not like American companies, okay? We can't even get Apple to crack an iPhone for us in a terrorist investigation. There isn't a single company in China that doesn't have to do whatever the government tells them to do. They are legally required to do it. And trust me, if they don't do it, they'll find a new CEO to run that company or a new company to take that company's place. When the Chinese ask a telecom company, we want you to turn over all the data you've gathered in the country you're operating in, they will do it. No court order, nothing like that. They will just do it. They have to.
But
We
you
need to
didn't have enough
understand that.
support on this last time. Do you now have the
Well,
support of
hopefully
the
that'll
White
change
House
now.
to try to get American companies to stop having this part of the supply chain?
I sure hope so. I hope we do, because I think both Huawei and ZTE and multiple other Chinese companies pose a threat to our national interests, our national economic interests, and our national security interests. And in the Huawei case, what they're accused of here, what she's accused of, is violating the Iran sanctions. So at a minimum, we should be doing to them what we did to ZTE when they violated the sanctions law, and which included not having access to American suppliers. And I hope that's what will happen. That's what we're encouraging the administration to do as soon as possible.
The president did make a nomination for Attorney General William Barr. He has made some past comments regarding the Russia probe that some view as prejudicial. What do you make of that, and does he have your support?
Well, I can't comment on whether I support him or not yet. I haven't even begun to review his qualifications or his record in the past. I know he's been through the Senate process before. I'm going to watch the judiciary process very closely. At the appropriate time, I'll meet with the nominee and get my own take on it, and then I'll have a decision to make. I generally do not support nominees, for the most part, unless I know them personally and well, until they have worked their way through the committee process. So I know he's gone through this process before. There's plenty of record out there for us to review before we make that decision. So right now, I don't know if I support him or not. I hope I can, because I think that's an important role that we need to fill. But I need to learn more about the nominee and about what he's done in the past before I can make that decision.
What about the UN ambassador? You may need to learn more about her, but does Heather Nauert have the kind of credentials needed to be America's representative at the United Nations?
I think she's been at the State Department now for almost 2 years. She's traveled extensively. I most certainly think she has the ability to do the job well, which is to be America's advocate in this international forum. Again, she will go through the Foreign Relations Committee. We'll have a chance to interact with her, ask her questions privately and publicly, and then make that judgment.
Should it be cabinet-level position?
Well, again, I'll have to meet with her. She'll have to go through our committee before I can answer that question for you. She's just been nominated. I don't know her well. I don't know much about her work, and I know she's been the spokesperson at the State Department, but the things you're asking me is, does she have detailed knowledge of foreign policy to a level that will allow her to be successful at the United Nations? I don't know. I need to meet with her. She needs to go through our committee and answer questions, and then I'll be able to make a judgment on it. And so I'm sorry, I'll have to wait until I be able to do all that to tell you 100% whether I can support her or not.
Senator Rubio, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.